To check a basic saddle fit on a horse, there are several things you want to make sure of. The first thing you want to do is try without the saddle pad to see what the saddle looks like against the horse's skin. Saddle pads can sometimes hide fit issues. So with this particular saddle, it's a close contact model, meaning that you were in close contact with the horse. There's not a lot of additional padding, primarily a jumping type of saddle. What you want to start with is there a nice straight line from the pommel to the cantle where your seat would sit in the middle of the horse? In this particular saddle, no, there's not. Ideally, the saddle would sit this way across the horse's back. So this saddle already would put extra pressure lower down the horse's back. You want to make sure that there's wither clearance. A minimum of 3 fingers should be able to go underneath the pommel, on top of the wither of the horse, without additional pressure from the saddle. You would also want to check from behind, safely, that the saddle was able to sit straight up their spine. If there was any crookedness between the pommel and the cantle, there would be an issue either of the fit or of the saddle itself, might have a twisted tree or be broken or unevenly tacked or stuffed. This is a dressage saddle with much deeper knee rolls, deeper seat, higher pommel and cantle, primarily used for dressage, obviously. The fit on this horse's back is better. There's a straighter line front to back. I've got almost 4 fingers of wither clearance. Then what you want to do is take your hand and run it from front to back underneath the saddle to make sure there's no bridging. Bridging is when there's excess pressure front and back and no pressure in the middle of the saddle. So you're going to take your hand underneath the saddle and slip it back from front to back to try and find as even a contact as pressure. You're also going to look at where the horse's scapula, the shoulder blade, meets the front of the saddle. If the scapula ends right at the start of the saddle, there's going to be some bumping into the saddle. So either the flap should sit over top of the scapula, or it should sit well behind the scapula, allowing 3 fingers of space from the scapula to the saddle pad. In this case, there's not that clearance. This saddle would probably bump into her scapula. This is an all-purpose saddle, combination of a close contact and a dressage saddle. Basically, we're going to look at the same things again. Does it sit nicely straight, front to back? It's a little low. Does it have good wither clearance? It's a little low. It has great scapula clearance. And then we want to make sure that her last rib isn't covered by the back of the saddle. The saddle should not extend further past the last rib. Once your horse has worked in the saddle that you've ridden in, a really good way to check is sweat stains. If there's an even sweat stain all down the back, there's a pretty good chance it's not causing uneven pressure points. If your saddle comes off and your saddle pad comes off and there are dry spots along the back, those are indicators of uneven pressure that could be causing pain along the spine or along the back muscles. Minor adjustments can be made to saddle fit using different styles of pads. The thicker the pad, the more space it takes up under the saddle. So if the saddle is already feeling tight on either side of the wither, it's not a good idea to use a thick pad. However, if there's a little bit of excess room, it can be taken up with some padding. Different types of pads that can be used are a foam wedge pad, which may or may not have a wither cutout, a sheepskin pad, which has a channel down the inside for relief and airflow along the spine, but is padded on the sides, or a gel pad, which generally is of even thickness and is just to add cushioning to the horse's back. So with the use of this foam pad, the shape and fit and adjustment of this saddle is better suited to the horse's back than without the foam pad. This is going to allow a more even contact across her back, and it's going to fill in where it was slightly deficient in its fit before. There are professional saddle doctors or saddle fitters that can be contacted to come out and do professional fit, custom, semi-custom fit, but the very basics of saddle fit are that it should not cause any pressure points, pain, or heat along the horse's back, and it should fit with the basics that we mentioned, which are 3-finger wither clearance, sitting behind the scapula, sitting ahead of the last rib, and not bridging along the horse's back, not causing uneven sweat marks or pressure points or heat. If you palpate the horse's back, if you rub the horse's back with your thumb, they should generally be fairly comfortable all the way down the back. They do have a mild reflex that allows them to sink their back away, but if you're pressing your thumb into their back and they're hollowing their back to move away from you, there's cause for concern that you may have a saddle fit issue.